All right, by now you've heard it again and again and again. The president says if he had to do it all over again, he would have shut down GITMO on day one. So why didn't he? And looking around the world and all these terror incidents these days, could you imagine if he did? To Virginia Republican Congressman Randy Forbes on a president he says is trying to have it both ways. What'd you make of what he was saying?
Well, Neil, it's just amazing when you look at the fact that our relationship with one of our greatest allies, Israel's at an all-time low. The Chinese are just growing in military power. Russians create capacity and capability than any time since World War II. Iran doing what it's doing, North Korea. And this president looks back and says the thing that he regrets most is not letting more terrorists go. The other thing, Neil, remember, the reason he didn't do it is because Congress, on an overwhelming bipartisan basis, told him not to do it. And that's what stopped him from actually bringing those terrorists to the United States.
I'm sorry, Congress. I also read that. This is before he became very fond of executive orders. If only he had appreciated the wisdom of that then, he could have just ordered this. But having said that, I was saying to the group in here that at the time he had the run of the House, right? He had the House under Democratic control, Senate under Democratic control, so that if he wanted to do it on day one, he could have, but he didn't. He couldn't do it. So what does that say?
But, Neil, one of the things you got to recognize that he did do is this. When he came into office, you take the 5 worst terrorists there for the 9/11 terrorists. We had a prosecutor, a prosecutorial team. They'd gone through months of litigation, over 56 motions. They told us personally, because I went to Guantanamo, I met with them. The president never did that. The president never talked to them. They would have had guilty pleas within 6 months, according to the prosecutors, and yet the president did come in and issue an order that shut that entire prosecution down, and to this day they have not prosecuted those terrorists or brought them to justice. That's a travesty, Neil.
You know, what is going to happen to GITMO? I know part of it is normalizing relations with Cuba. The Cubans want it shut down and destroyed. They also want it complete control over it. And it's a negotiating chip back and forth. What do you think should happen?
Well, what I think should have happened and should now happen is he should have begun to allow the prosecutions that had already started to go forward so that we could get convictions on many of the terrorists that were down there. His administration has been just absolutely absent when it comes to actually prosecuting these individuals, because what he wanted to do is bring them to the United States, and Neil, the moment they touched U.S. soil, they would get additional constitutional rights that terrorists don't have when they're at Guantanamo.
You know, Hezbollah, Iran off an international security watch list. The cold treatment of Benjamin Netanyahu, this whole GITMO thing. You know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but boy, I don't like what I'm seeing.
Well, I don't think any of us do either. And then when you look at what he's done to our national defense and the position he's put that in, I think it's a very, very concerning moment. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to turn around. We can't turn around his foreign policy blunders, but what we can do, and Congress are trying to do, is at least keep him from continuing to debilitate our military so that when we do get a new president in, Republican or Democrat, they can take it over and begin to turn it around.
Congressman, we shall see. Randy Forbes, very good having you.
Thanks, Neil.